What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Baseball Dojo with Pitching Ninja and friends. Although today it's just friend, Michael Fisher. We're friends, right?
Hi, friend.
Yeah.
Happy June.
Happy June to you. And remember, this is sponsored by FanDuel. Today we're going to be talking about the ABS system, the integration of Negro League stats, as well as what have we seen so far this year. We're entering June already, and stuff is kind of baked in. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well. And our guest this week is the strikeout king, the man with the most strikeouts in a row in baseball history, at least as far as we can go back, Jeremiah Estrada. What is up, Mr. Fisher?
What's up? It's that happy time. The honeymoon's over from spring training, and a lot of guys are like, okay, well, I gave these things a try, and here I am. I'm coming back to get some more input because this isn't working. It's a pretty interesting time here at Codify. It happens every year around this time.
I'm really curious about that because I saw that Driveline ran some stats on their Stuff Plus model, and there are definitely things that have changed, like from last year to this year. And what happens is hitters kind of get you. If you attack somebody with sweepers all the time, they're going to practice against sweepers, and you're not going to be as successful once they start practicing against it. Once they see enough, they're going to recognize it. Same thing with some other pitches as well. And looking at that, so I was watching that thread and going, man, what does this do to Codify's model? You're constantly having to pay attention to this. What worked 1 week may not work the next week, or, say 1 month to the next month. What have you seen?
Oh, definitely shifts. We've saw it from the get-go. Remember when we were kids, what they tell you to keep the ball down because that worked back then, and why doesn't that work anymore? Because everyone adapted, and look, it's a constant game of adaptation. Well, it happens during the season too. How many splitters are we seeing this year versus last year and the year before? We're seeing a ton.
It seems like a million, everybody.
Right. Now I have to look more closely to your point, but what do you know without looking that hitters are like, look, we have to do something. We can't just be, before you'd face a splitter guy once a month or twice a month and, kind of get ready for that guy. Now it's like, damn, like half the guys have splitters, it seems. Now the flip side of that, I just had a talk 15 minutes ago with a guy that I work with who's starting to see some unbluing of a splitter in certain areas, let's just say at the knees, over the middle of the plate. And you're starting to see that some hitters are starting to, because they're practicing more, they're recognizing these.
Does it rhyme with Devin Blosman?
No, it does not. But
okay,
no, his doesn't unblue.
Yeah, all right, just checking.
No. Private guy, but yeah, I mean, he's like, what's going on? Am I throwing worse? I'm like, well, there's a lot to this. It's not just you, it's the hitter, it's the league. What do we see? And we're just trying to make a best guess. Sweepers, your first example, totally great example of, you first saw them, they were sexy, they're breaking 3 feet, and you're like, what the hell do I do with this? The more you see something, the more you can defend against it.
Yeah, so for folks out there that don't know, we have machines now that can replicate the movement of pitches. You just plug it in and say, I want this guy's sweeper, and it'll throw relatively well. That it'll mirror that. I do wonder, what do you do with Matt Waldron's knuckleball? Because that may be like a long-term good pitch, because I don't think a machine could replicate it because there's so much randomness to something like that. It just depends on where the seam is during flight and the weather and the wind and the just a little bit off, and all of a sudden it goes a different way. That may be the exception, but yeah, you can do all this. So somebody may have a splitter out there that's been effective, but yet now everybody's practicing against it. And once they see it, maybe it's a little less effective.
Absolutely true. Not even partially. Absolutely. You see it in the data. It's tricky. When you come back in April, you haven't seen these guys play, or March, but you haven't seen them play. They've all gone to their caves and changed their pitches, their approach and batting. So when you see things happen in the first part of the year, you're like, is this real? Is Spencer Torkelson really kind of a dud right now? Or is this just a bad week or 3 weeks? And what do you tell somebody on April 1st for Spencer Torkelson? Like, a guy hit 31 home runs last year. He's not a monster, but he's a good hitter.
Pretty good hitter. Yeah.
Good enough. The guy's in the minor leagues now.
Yep.
Reed
Detmers
over the weekend down. It's like, well,
he started out so great too.
Yeah, I probably need to talk to that guy because I don't have at the top of my list send Reed Detmers down to fix him. You know what I mean?
Right, right, exactly. His stuff is
So,
clearly there. But yeah,
right.
we're seeing all this stuff absolutely, get baked in. And I was just thinking, like, what does the new bat path data tell us too? Can it tell us like these guys are taking more healthy hacks against these pitches
Hmm.
now? They weren't before. That you could see it a slower bat speed. Now there may be a longer swing with higher velo because they know that it's coming. I don't know. Like I think this is all really interesting stuff to me.
Yeah, I mean, I have a quick sad story on that note because the teams get mountains of data. I had a talk over the weekend with an agency. I can't say any names here as well. I'm sorry, but it's a new guy. He'd been with his team for 5 weeks. He'd pitched one for 10 outings. They call a meeting. They're like, "Look, you're not following our stuff. You're not doing what we tell you to do out there." He's like, "I'm trying to get guys out." Like, well, our job is to tell you what to do, and your job is to do it. And he's like, so anyway, the punchline is, he's like, "Look, with all due respect, I can't follow your plan. I'm not gonna do it. I can't do it, and I won't do it." And they're like, "Well, that's insubordination." This now he's like, "No, wait, let's go over your plan." So it's like, okay, when you're behind in the count to this hitter, we want you to use your changeup more. He's like, "Can I stop you there, just right there? I don't have a changeup." The guy had pitched for him 10 times. They're still handing him stuff which he'd been ignoring because, I mean, not completely. I mean, a new guy, don't say throw their shit out. I said, let's integrate codify stuff into what you're getting, see what's working. We want you to succeed. But damn, when that kind of stuff's happening, it just breaks my heart.
It is amazing to me because I don't think people know the dysfunction level in major league clubhouses or front offices, all this stuff,
Right.
and why people seek outside help with this stuff because you're a psychologist, you're also you're tailoring stuff for this specific pitcher, having one-on-one meetings, and these guys are
Right.
trying to work with all different pitchers. This is our organizational philosophy. We're going to do this, this, and this. And you have guys that don't necessarily know how to talk baseball. Stat guys aren't necessarily the greatest at communicating, and they may not even know what's going on. Like, believe me, I love
Mhm.
all the data I can get, but I've worked with engineers for the last 25 years. I know how they communicate. And it doesn't often go well for people that think a certain way to hear it from somebody that thinks another way. And there's always something lost in the translation. You need somebody that can do both. And those are the successful people.
Right. I mean, it's the whole reason Codify exists, not just baseball, but in the banking world, it was that. I managed hundreds of people and then came over and said, there's better ways to do this. We have computers now, learn that. And then, you come over and turn your nuggets of wisdom, true wisdom, into something that can be used instead of just crossing eyes with the details of the math or whatever you did. Like, turn it into something usable.
Of course, I'm thinking to Office Space, the movie, which I
It was
hope you
exactly like that.
where I'm a people person.
I was more like the guy that came in and took down the wall for a better
Yeah,
view of the squirrels mating.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's a great movie for anybody who hasn't seen it. Like
Oh, go
anybody that's
now.
worked in technology, it
Spot
is
on.
your life. It is nailed it. It's so
Spot
good.
on.
But yeah, all this stuff is really interesting to me. And I don't think it's obvious to most baseball fans out there that they think something's wrong with the pitcher, like he's not throwing as well, where it's actually just hitters get to practice against this pitcher stuff. You've got to switch things up. Shota Imanaga may be an example of this. We'll see. The jury's out about, he had a bad outing. Everybody has a bad outing some point. That's life. But don't forget, hitters are going to practice against this. You can't get away with the same thing over and over and over again and just and expect to do it. He may have to switch his pitch mix up, maybe throw some more sweepers, breaking balls, or maybe not. We'll see.
He's washed. No, let's just ignore the fact that he went 11 days between starts. Okay.
I think that's the big thing. Like to
Right.
me,
I
that
do.
was a
I
yeah,
do.
yeah.
Yeah.
Probably, it's just something this little that's off. All of a sudden, it makes a huge
Mhm.
difference. His stuff didn't like I was looking at his metrics, they weren't tremendously off to me. Like stuff I was seeing, it wasn't way off, but
Not
he
enough
just
for
wasn't
that.
as sharp.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Just not enough for that.
Yeah, and sometimes you just get baseballed, and maybe you are doing well, and it's life. Somebody catches a barrel, you hit it out. That's
Yeah.
life too. That's hitters are trying to win.
I said it before that. I mean, I'd still like to see him use the fastball a little less, but hey, I mean, his true performance level is really good.
Yes.
Still is,
Well,
guys.
and we've
You
had
know?
this discussion, like,
Yeah.
I would say you keep going to what you're going to until somebody shows signs of catching on to it, like, you don't give in when you don't have to, but eventually you may have to change your pitch mix a little bit, like, I would think.
Hey, what was it? Third or fourth guy I worked with was Sean Doolittle, and it's like, who wasn't he
Fastballs.
was a pitcher, but then he wasn't a pitcher, but then it's like, wait, this works, and it's like literally everyone knows I'm throwing it, and they can't do anything about it. It's like he's like, I'd love to add more pitches. I want to pitch, but it's like, but why? Like
Right.
my best chance of commanding this is to throw it over and over again. It's far more effective than playing this whole guessing games. Like to your point, what don't change unless you have to, which you normally do, but
Right.
you don't always.
Yeah, and there's no shame in it. Like, there is no
Mm-mm.
shame in changing things up. So, should Chris Sale, because he had a bad outing, change what he does? Probably not. He's been doing it his whole career, but I would
Right.
look into whether he was tipping pitches. I tried to look into it. I didn't see anything. Like, I did overlays of his. I think he just had a bad day. Um, that happens. None of his metrics stood out. His slider, although his slider was breaking a little less than it had been. So
Right.
that jumped out at me. Why is that? I don't know. Maybe he just wasn't feeling it that day. But you do have to look at this, and you're tasked with doing this. Like, is it a one off or is it a long term trend that I need to
Right.
now change these charts?
Right. What do I do for an Aaron Judge map on April 26th? It's
Yeah.
like, well, he's kind of this and that. It's
He's
like,
he's terrible.
yeah,
He's
yeah. But the
great.
system didn't do that. It's like, look, come on. It
Yeah.
recognizes it as this is 4 weeks. It wasn't that atrocious. It just wasn't amazing.
It and this is the frustration of being a baseball fan in general, and I'd love to, touch that a little bit. Um, it's just you see performance and you're seeing guys struggle and you boo. And you're like, "Oh, what's maybe, this is t-" but you do know the guy's back of his baseball card that he's probably not going to keep. Sometimes they keep struggling, sometimes they don't. Booing doesn't help. Like, it just actually a lot of times puts more pressure on the player and makes them, it just think if you're at work and somebody's yelling at you constantly, does that help you work better or does that maybe make you second guess everything you do and make your job suck? Probably more of the latter. Some people get motivated by it. Don't know. But Aaron Judge isn't a great example, like somebody who he's going to turn it around. And when he does, oh my God, like forget it. He's just going to destroy everything, which is now what you got. And will he slump again? Yes, he will slump at some point in his career again, without a doubt. And he'll probably get booed.
Yeah, I mean, Torkelson had indicators that like, oh, this isn't bad luck. This is a true shift in performance. So,
Yep.
you know, you can see that, but with Judge, no, no.
Right. And that's what you're like. Again, this is what smart guys in baseball have to deal with is you have to look at real trends, say, is this
Mhm.
sustainable? Is this luck? This is why some of the expected stats are so important. Why I love the bat tracking stuff, but other stuff as well, like hard hit balls. Everybody's like, I don't care about exit velo. Well, you should, because exit velo is a big determinant of whether a ball is going to be a hit or not. If you're hitting it at somebody or you're hitting it hard, you don't just try to change your swing to hit it over that guy. You just assume that it's going to play out, that the ball's going to drop. And when it does, you're going to go on fire. Those are the things that's important as a hitter and as a pitcher, too. You can get lucky and have sustained success over multiple starts, but you were lucky. And eventually it catches up to you. It doesn't mean you were great back then. It just means you were lucky. It doesn't mean you're terrible now. Some pitchers have bad outings because they just have bad outings. This is a hard game.
Right. Yeah, Baseball Savant has a good graphic that just compares exit velo to launch angle. And people are like, don't give me all these numbers. Well, yeah, you should look at those two in conjunction. Logan Webb has given up a lot of hard contact, but the damn ball is going straight down into the ground. If you want to hit 90-mile-an-hour ground balls, go ahead. That's fine. And I'm not talking about line drive, I'm talking about ground balls. So look at the two in conjunction. You look at that versus, to your point, the expectation of what will happen. And you can see right away, like, okay, there's a couple lucky hits. Look at it next week. You're going to see a couple lucky outs. It does, not perfectly, but it does largely even out.
Exactly. Like it's one of those things that's hard and I get it. Like fans are there. They're not there for math class. They're there to watch the
Well,
game. But
right.
don't.
Right. You lost the game today. You didn't, I don't care what your expectation was. I know what happened. So I totally get that. But if you're going to say the guy sucks, that you've taken it too far. in a lot
Exactly.
of cases, right?
And I've talked to pitchers where I said, you've had some bad luck. I'm looking at your, the batting average and balls in play and all that stuff. And they don't want to hear it. They want to say they want to be in control of it. They don't want it to be
It's true.
luck. They want it to be something I could change or I can do. I respect that too. I respect as a fan, you don't come to a baseball game to think of math. Some people do, some people don't. But trust that there are smart people. I know, don't leave it to the geeks to figure it out, but also leave it to baseball people to communicate it to baseball players in a language that they can understand, just like we just did. Exit
Yeah.
velo doesn't make sense. Hitting the ball hard, doing everything in your power to make solid contact should be what you're after as a hitter.
Kind of a fascinating thing I've talked about last week with two guys that I didn't mention to you ahead of time, but it involves lineup protection. Who a lot of people are like, "There's no such thing." But the question posed to me out by an outside guy was, "Do you ever have conversations with your guys of how to vary how you attack a hitter depending on who's behind him?" And the answer is absolutely yes. Now, that's not me signing off on it's the most important thing and you should totally care. But once the pitcher thinks it's important and you can't talk him out of it, it's like we need to address this because it's in your head. Like I'll try to pull him back, but like you don't want to put this guy on and put the next guy like appreciate what you just did to the expectation of what this inning is going to look like. But on the other hand, there are completely legitimate, especially like righty lefty, lefty righty combinations where one guy's coming up, there's two outs. I have trouble getting this guy out and I murder the guy behind him. It's like, appreciate that and change your approach on this one. It happens all the time. But it's interesting because you hear a lot of people say there's no such thing. You should never care about who's coming up behind. It's like, ugh,
I totally disagree with that. And
yeah.
I will say that talking to the smartest pitchers in the world, Greg Maddux, for example,
Hmm.
1000% agrees with the fact that you have to pitch to a lineup. You
Right.
pitch around somebody because you know that the next guy can't hurt you as much. So protection has to matter. Like you look at what's happened to someone like Shohei, or you look at the Yankees lineup. I mean, I don't even know how you navigate these lineups. You don't get a breath of air sometimes, but you've got
Right.
to get to that pocket of air at some point and maybe pitch around some guy or you kind of have to. Like, I don't understand why that isn't a thing.
Yeah, actually, it was the Yankees that brought this question up from outside to me. Is like, hey, I noticed that Judge took off when they put Verdugo behind him. Like they had Stanton behind him in the beginning or whatever it was. And a lot of guys are like, yeah, I mean, Stanton will swing at whatever. I don't want him to hit anything, but I'd rather face him than a contact guy. And if I put Judge on, then so on and so on. And, when you look at a long enough body of work, you're like, well, I can certainly imagine that was an impact.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
if the
exactly.
pitcher thinks it, then it is. It is. And if the pitcher thinks it is, it is. So,
Totally. But I will
yeah.
say the smartest pitchers in the world ever believe
Right.
that's a thing. So I tend to go with that. Logically,
Right.
it makes sense, but also this is what pitchers say.
Right.
And they're not making that up. One question I had before we move on your maps, and we didn't talk about this before, so you can tell me I haven't thought about it, but you have. Is like say you have several pitches, they're all similar blue. How do you say, like, are you saying these like there's some interrelationship between how do you choose what pitch to throw a hitter between two equally good pitches, or is that just a coin flip? And you can't keep throwing the same pitch. I assume that blue would change on a second time, third time, fourth time seeing it.
Right. I have simulations of different pitch mixes for the same pitcher that we often use at like when we onboard. This very same guy that I was just talking to was the poster child for this. Of his mix was off, and are like, look, actually, this is kind of saying against same-handed batters, 30%, 30%, 30%, 10%. Let's just throw that out there as kind of a look. Now he was like 50, 40, 5, 5. And I'm like, can you throw that third pitch a lot? And he's like, I can throw that third pitch all day long. They told me not to throw it. um, that blue it's a synergy. Absolutely. Absolutely. If you picked one of those blue pitches and said, screw it, I'm going to throw it 80% of the time. Yeah, it's going to unblue because it's not fundamentally blue. It's a synergistically blue for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. I see it all the time. Now we'll talk about it at the end when we introduce the guest, but other pitches totally influence your belief in what's going to happen with a pitch. Like what else do you have? How often do you throw it? And we saw with him, he turned into a totally different pitcher when he changed that.
Absolutely, and I'm very excited for that conversation because that is the thing that jumped out at me too. Adding pitches,
Yeah.
and stuff like that just changes everything and changes the perform. Just think it's putting for folks out there, it's just putting another thought in a hitter's mind that now they can't sit on something,
Right.
um, and maybe they leave the bat on their shoulder. Like, I noticed that with Trevor Williams, like
Hmm.
Trevor Williams throwing his sweeper more, um, just has put more confusion in hitters' heads, and he's taken off this year. Like he is for a guy with I don't consider plus major league stuff at all. He's turned into what is he like fifth in the NL and in ERA.
Hmm.
Been really good, but it's all just changing pitch mix and throwing one pitch 7 times more.
Right. As a hitter can guess more successfully what you're going to throw next, the requirement for you to have some nasty shit increases, and most guys can't keep up with that. So
Yeah.
it's something I say to probably every guy that comes on is like, what do you think hitters are thinking when they face you? And a lot of times they just kind of like, what do you mean? I'm like, this is the whole game, man. You know, this
Totally.
is the whole game.
That's such a great question. That is,
Hmm.
because then it requires them to understand themselves. Everybody understands what they can throw because they're in control of it, but what is a hitter thinking you're gonna
Right.
do? What's your key to your success in your mind? Like, why are you getting guys out? What does a hitter not wanna see from you? Which talking to Cal Raleigh, I thought that was interesting. Cal Raleigh calls pitches as if he was the hitter. That's why he calls so many fastballs for some guys. He doesn't like Logan Gilbert's
Hmm.
fastball. And he told Logan Gilbert, he's like, man, I hate your fastball. Even though his fastball's fast, it doesn't have it coming at him. He's saying, I can hit this. Luis Castillo's fastball, he's like, I can't hit this. So he calls that more. George Kirby, same thing. Brian Wu, same thing. I went through all the pitchers with him, and Logan Gilbert was the only one that he was like, "Man, I can crush your fastball." So he thinks of it the right way, and I think if pitchers thought of it that way, it would help. And I think Paul Skeens actually does it, being a catcher converted to a pitcher.
Right.
I think that's an advantage. We mentioned talking about automated balls and strikes. What's your take on that? Does that make everything much more difficult or easier? I don't know.
For
For you and for
well,
I
no,
imagine
it'll
for hitters and pitchers, it's gonna be really interesting, but for like, I
well,
think it changes everything.
yeah, I think you start answering that question by the question of what are we going to see? There was talk way back when of like we're going to go to pure automated balls and strikes. It's trending, of course, toward a challenge system,
They have to, right?
and if that happens, then you're still going to have this whole, you're still going to have framing. You're still going to have umpires matter. You're still going to have that art piece of it, and it won't be quite as much. Well, it'll be a small fraction of the impact to me to codify. If they ever went pure, then we immediately start looking for ways to game it at its edges, like of course we would, and that would be a radical change. And the the framing pieces, there are framing pieces in codified maps, of course there are. Okay, well those come out. The umpire comes out. A lot of things would change.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely would be on the challenge system bandwagon as well
100%.
versus yeah, like, keep the umpires doing their job, make the hitters and pitchers have to pay and catchers have to pay attention to it and be as good as the umpire that they're complaining about. Like, and maybe you'll learn that umpires have a pretty tough job. Look, I complain about umpires all the time. You do as well. We all know from having done it before, it is not an easy job at all. I could go back there and I would not be even in, I couldn't come close to being as good as Angel Hernandez. I just couldn't. God bless his retirement. I
Right.
just couldn't. It's easier to see. It's easy to see because we have this little box on the screen and we have ways of judging the pitch. But when you're back there looking at a pitch that moves a ton and it's really fast, it's hard.
Right. You know, I won't say I've been perfect on this, but I really try because in my mind, I'm only really upset about the pitches that don't have a lot of movement. It's a sinker. It
Right.
only had a foot of movement and it was out of the strike zone the whole time. It started 2 feet out. It didn't even it didn't even break toward the zone. Like you just botched this one. Now I
Right.
get it. I get the ones that are like, this was heading toward the zone, then disappeared. Like, yeah, okay. The pitcher fooled the umpire and, and the hitter. Um, but for the ones that are like in the chalk on the other box, Like, come on,
Y-
guys. I mean,
Yeah,
what do
there's
you can't, you didn't see it. So like, how are you, you're clearly guessing. And that, I don't like to see that. If you think
right there.
you saw it, but there's, you can't think that you saw a strike because the ball was nowhere near the zone.
The other
So,
thing is there are times where the indicator may show that it's a tiny bit off the plate, but that pitch has some movement back to the plate that in the
mhm.
little distance, fans have to learn how to take that into account. Like they're always like, it went around the plate. It's very hard for a pitch to go around the plate. The plate isn't
All right.
isn't 20 feet long. The catcher doesn't sit 20 feet behind the home plate. It's a pretty short distance. Pitches aren't moving like, you know, 20 feet either. You're talking about a pitch moves 20 inches and 60 feet, 6 inches worth. And we're looking at a part that is, you know, a foot and a half big distance wise. How much is that pitch going to move over that? But there are times where it comes up as a circle and not a dot. It looks like it didn't catch the zone, that maybe it did catch the zone at the back of, at the back of the plate. Could happen. I'm less upset about those calls.
Well, that's what's great about the challenge system is those won't get challenged very often. I mean, late in a game when you have a challenges left and you say, screw it, I'll use them. But in general, you're not going to see the nitpick, where the inaccuracy of the system, which is very small, could come into play with a pure system. It would, but this, we won't see that.
Yeah, and the thing that I love about it is you can fine tune it if you think that you want more offense, you don't want more
Mhm.
offense, you want fewer walks, you want more walks, whatever you want, because it's computerized, you can widen it, shorten it. This isn't an immutable thing. You're not saying that it has to be. You could say you want more than just a seam of the ball in the strike zone. You could say it only should be a strike if it's a quarter of the ball in the strike zone, and that will overrule the umpire. But if it's barely touching, we're going to go with the umpire because there's some error in the system. Could be. I doubt they'll go with that, but you could do that if you wanted to. The whole bunch of things you can do.
I would love the opportunity to be the one to do that. And we'll see. Well, what is it? Guns don't kill people. We'll see. We'll see what they do with that.
Guns don't kill people. Michael
Right.
Fisher controlling the
Right.
ABS system kills people.
MLB controlling the ABS.
Yeah, but I do think, especially with gaming, online gambling getting bigger and bigger, it would be nice to take that out of the equation. Like, I don't like hearing he must have had money on that game or whatever. If you
Right.
have an ABS system, it's unlikely the computer is betting on the game until we have AI, and then the computer's probably making a whole bunch of money betting on the game.
Yeah, challenge system sits a lot better with the fans. By far, it sits better with the players. It sits better with the catchers, the umpires. It's pretty much a consensus. I'm sure it'll head that way, and it'll do a lot of good. It'll do a lot of good. It'll get rid of these egregious. I mean, Angels, that one at bat to Wyatt Langford. You're like, oh my God, what is wrong? Like you had a stroke or something. No, I mean you had. I know
Yeah,
you had to. It was
yeah,
the
it was terrible.
yeah. I mean, it wasn't even close.
No, and I'm all in favor of it too because it adds another dimension to drinking games at the stadium too. Like, challenge, what do you want? Is it going to be overturned or not?
It
Drink.
it fits into the game. We already have
Yeah.
this for a lot of other things. Let's have it for
And it's
this.
quicker. It's not like the other ones are slow. This is like you're talking about, it doesn't really slow down the game from what I mean. I've seen it in action. It's really cool.
Well, then, so what year will it be that we finally turn to computers for help and check swings?
Yeah, they really well, the issue is we haven't really defined it very well.
Yeah,
It'd
it's
have
not in
to
the
be
rule
defined
book. So
better.
what are you looking for? My thing was always, could you have hit the ball 400 feet? Aaron Judge the other day, like they're arguing about whether he held. I'm like, dude, he could have hit it 420
Right.
with the check swing. So that's a swing.
Yeah, I think we would have to define it like so. When MLB defines sword, they
Mhm.
actually defined it with very precise details, such that the bat tracking technology could say this is a sword. You can do that absolutely with the bat tracking technology. Say if the bat goes in front of home plate and
Right.
whatever, that's a swing. But right now, it just says it's all about the hitter's intent. Did the hitter intend to strike the ball? That a computerized system can't tell. Like a computerized
Right.
system, a mind reading system can, but a computerized system can't. So you're going to have to define where the bat had to go to for it to be a strike. And I imagine they will. Like, I think that's a good call. And then you can overrule it because sometimes, a hitter may just mess around. Who knows? Just because the bat ended up in front of it. It could be the hitter's protecting himself. Like
Hmm.
you've seen hitters fall down and the bat ends up in front of the plate, but they're not trying to hit the ball. They're trying to get out of the way of the ball. And all fans are like, it's a swing. His bat crossed the plate. And like, that's not the rule. Is he trying to hit the ball or not? Is the rule.
It's so gray that I would actually be in favor in this case of us trying to do something systemically, just because it's so every time, every check swing, every call, 80% of the people disagree. So
Yep, totally agree. Like I think we do need to define it better. And there should be something that we can, again, for that situation where a hitter's trying to get out of the way of the ball, that shouldn't be it. It makes for great videos for me, but
right.
in reality, the hitter has to be trying to hit the ball and not just trying to preserve his life. If the bat falls because the hitter's twisting out of the way and falls through the zone, I'm fine with that not being a strike, even though it ruins my videos.
How long should they have to challenge a pitch call, a ball and strike call? And this is topical. I hadn't really heard it till recently. What should teams be able to see? They're talking about,
Oh
we're going to
yeah.
bring this in, but restrict your ability to see like I can see that was a bad call, rather than just, trusting and having the batter do it. It's an interesting
It's a
topic.
really good point
Yeah.
because if you had the broadcast, you can see that it didn't light up and it was again, for
Right.
folks out there watching games, this is a good note. For every broadcast other than the Mets broadcast right now, the Mets broadcast has a solid dot for every pitch, ball and a strike. That's just life. I hate it, but that's what they do. And they also don't put the velo by the dot. It's makes it tougher, but that's just what they do.
Right.
For every other broadcast, if it's a solid dot, so think of a solid dot, a period dot, that is a strike. That means the ball caught the zone, robo zone. So the umpire, if the umpire calls that a strike and the robo, you shouldn't argue that. If it's a circle without the dot filled in, an open circle, that is a ball. That means the ball did not get in the zone. And if you see an umpire call that a strike, probably a bad call. Although we were saying sometimes it might have crossed the plate later on, very rarely, but could happen. So this helps you all watching broadcasts and stop yelling at the screen when you're wrong. Or maybe it helps you be right more often. This is good.
Right, but there's the problem. Right there is, we want this to be something we see 3 or 4 times a game, or 5, or
Right.
whatever it is. But if you're sitting there, like I just hired Rob to sit in the dugout and just sit there and watch the
He
TV and
challenged
go
this. It didn't light
challenge,
up.
challenge,
Yeah.
challenge, there'll be 30 challenges.
Right. And we
And
nobody
we can't
wants
have
that.
that. We can't have
No,
that. So what do you get to? Maybe I need to restrict this.
you do need to restrict it. I
I mean, you
think. I
could,
think.
right. I mean, you could have a fan sitting in the stands with it, and just
Right.
the
To
batter just
me,
turn around and look and go, yeah, challenge it. So there's a weird way to game it there that's really easy.
yeah, to me, this thing is more valuable if, look, smarty pants, I'm better. Like, if you really think you're better than the umpire, you saw that and you're 100% sure, you're like, this umpire's blind, challenge it right away.
Hmm.
It should be challenged right away. I don't know what right away is. Is it within a second, within 2 seconds? Like, you know it when you see it. And you should be wrong sometimes. Like, the umpire may be better than you at knowing
Right.
balls and strikes. They should be because that's their job. Um, it should be for more egregious stuff too. Like I'm all for, correcting some of those horrible calls we see that we're yelling at the screen on. But for marginal ones, I mean, it really shouldn't be challenged that much. Like that's not why you're losing the game, folks.
No, I love the batters being able to do it. We see it all the time.
Yeah,
And like Skeens throwing it like mid pitch.
yeah, yeah,
He's
but
in
yeah,
the follow through challenge.
yeah,
But
exactly. That's fun.
that's what I want to see.
So integration, double entendre of Negro League stats, big deal. And I love it. Like the folks out there, like, well, they didn't play against, baby. Well, guess what? They weren't, they weren't allowed to. Like you made a rule that said they couldn't play against them. And the talent there was at least as good as we were seeing in the major leagues. Like, come on, we're not. And I see arguments like, well, integrate the Japanese league stats and integrate the Mexican league stats. Well, nobody was stopping them from playing in MLB. We had a rule. They were not allowed to play. They wanted to play, they just couldn't. So it's a much different situation than that. That's a terrible argument. Bring all these stats in. I love learning about it. As a matter of fact, next week I'm tracking down Bob Kendrick. Hope to have him on here. He's president of the Negro League Museum. And I want to learn. I want to learn about all these great characters and athletes that I don't know enough about because we were never taught this stuff.
Right. I remember, God, I didn't want to say what year, but it was so long ago when I first started learning baseball, and I got that baseball encyclopedia. I'm going through it and like get to Roy Campanella, and you're like, why? Where was this guy before he was 27 or whatever, 26? That kind of thing. Or Willie Mays when he finally learned, like, who the hell is he playing for when he was 20?
Right.
He played a couple of games in the Negro League before he came over, and it's like, you know, and then
Satchel Paige.
right, Josh Gibson, like these were, yeah. Now look, I totally believe that the top of the crop, whatever you want to call it, in their leagues were at least as good as the top in the major league. Absolutely. Was the entire league as strong? I do not believe that it was. I
Yeah, I
don't.
just don't know. Like, I don't know. I don't know.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can look at the
Yeah.
way stats are distributed and all that stuff. It's like, was
Yeah.
the worst player in their leagues better than the worst player?
Oh,
No,
right.
he was
Yeah.
worse.
I
That
just,
they didn't
yeah.
have the depth. What? So what? I mean, they played. There's a record of it. There's questions about accuracy, all that stuff. Now, the old me, obviously is like, we need to quantify everything and everything has to be perfect, and they'd be a little bent about this. But step back and look at the bigger picture here. To your point, this is rightfully so putting more of a light on some great baseball player. I mean, imagine if integration had taken 20 more years.
Right.
Like, who's Hank Aaron?
Yep.
I don't know. Who's
The
Ernie Banks?
legend
Who's
of
Frank
Hank
Robinson?
Aaron. Right.
Who's Jackie Robinson? Right. Who's Willie Mays? You wouldn't know
Right.
any of those guys. Oh, well, if you don't know now about what happened.
But imagine if it happened 20 years before, and we have, like, there is no doubt in my mind that Satchel Paige would have been, if not the best, one of the handful of best pitchers, but probably the best pitcher. All the stories about him, even when he was in the major leagues when he was like, what, 40, whatever.
50.
But
I hate to say the number. Yeah.
Yeah, and he was still good. You watch that dude's arm action, absolutely can throw, had a million different pitches. Like, there is no way. My eye test tells me he would have been a stud. What everybody said about him back then tells me he would have been a stud. And knowing what his stats were against the major league hitters when he was washed up, like when normal people would be washed up, he was still doing it and doing it at a very high level without that velo.
Right. I didn't want to say the number because every time I say it, it sounds wrong, but it is the number that came to my head. He was 59 and threw 3 scoreless against the Boston Red Sox in an actual MLB game, not a scrimmage, not whatever. It was a regular season game. 3 scoreless.
So what does that dude do at 24? 35 years before that age. They were saying how hard he threw. You see how lanky he is and how his arm moved. Without a doubt, he threw gas. And without a doubt, he was creative and crafty and brilliant. We got robbed of being able to see all that footage, and he deserves every bit of the accolades he gets. And we're probably not doing him justice because we don't have all the stats.
No. Yeah. I mean, that's one of the arguments here is like, well, this doesn't really do enough justice. So I agree. I mean, there's, you can't just throw a year of stats into the pile and go, okay, we're all good now, right? I'm like, no, I mean, we're not trying to make it right. We can never do that, but this is a step toward more awareness, which I think is great.
Yeah, I agree. And again, for folks out there, this was not their choice not to be in the major leagues. This wasn't a group of people saying, we think our league's better. It's not the USFL and the NFL. The USFL players were allowed to play in the NFL. They chose not to. This is a group of folks that were not given the opportunity, develop their own league with amazing talent. And I want to learn every bit about it that I can. And I hope everybody else out. Baseball is about history. Like, this stuff is history. I love it. Give me all of it.
Right. Ichiro was the big example, but I mean, like, to your point, like, no one said you couldn't come over. You just didn't. I mean, it's totally different. It's not the same thing.
Yeah, don't get suckered into those arguments. All right, so I wrap it up. We have Jeremiah Estrada as the guest. Holy crap, setting the baseball world on fire. I know Cubs fans love this guy, but he just didn't do it for the Cubs. For the Padres has been lights out. His ERA this year is like 0.5. But bigger news is he broke the all-time record, striking out 13 consecutive hitters which is just ridiculous. What have you seen from him?
Well, first of all, 13 in a row is not shouldn't. It's possible, but you shouldn't. It's not something you should see. I mean, I don't know what his true strikeout rate is, but let's just pretend it's 50% to make the math easy. Go flip a coin 13 times and get heads, not one or the other, heads 13 times in a row, over 8,000 to 1. That it's not like, it's not something you should see. I mean, for for hundreds of years, it just shouldn't happen. So it's really amazing. 13 is insane. It doesn't, you just hear it and you're like, wow, that's amazing. No, it's amazing.
Amazing, yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
From a guy
Now I
that's
knew,
not a household name either. Like Roki
no,
Sasaki did, I think Roki might have had 13 in a row in his perfect game, maybe.
did he?
Yeah, you can fact check me on that. Like maybe a real-time fact check.
Well, that's amazing too.
Oh yeah, like I'm gonna real-time fact check myself. You
Yeah,
keep talking
absolutely.
because I don't
Yeah.
want to
Now
lie.
Estrada was already on our radar with that fastball. It was, 96 ish last year, but 10 inches of drop. That's kind of the cutoff where, like, if you're getting less than 10 inches with your fastball, you have our full attention. He's thrown a little harder this year, another mile per hour, but that little bit of horizontal is like gone. Like the average is zero. It doesn't mean that every one is zero, but it's like half of them are cutting. He's not wasting any of that spin on anything but keeping that ball in the air. That's amazing, but that's not everything. The slider is 6 miles an hour harder. And now we have the chitter, the splitter, the whatever you want to call
We
it.
all have to watch out when we say that name.
I said chitter. Darling calls it a shitter.
Yeah, and I
Um,
actually said it should be like it's a sharp, hard splitter, so it should be a shitter.
I'm good with it. I mean, those are the results. What's interesting is it has roughly the same drop as this slider. It's just going 18 inches different horizontal, and that combination, a lethal fastball with that hard slider and that splitter, it's just that triangle of death.
That
It's just
exactly. That's what I call it, the triangle of death. It's exactly that. Equilateral going opposite ways, and you're the fastball at the top.
this is the first thing. God, I mean, maybe the third thing we did with Straley, like out of the gates, was we would look for triangles, and he'd like, I
Yep.
want my triangle to be like this. Like he picked Scherzer, and he's like, look, I can't be Scherzer, I can't throw like this. I'm gonna have a weaker triangle, but I want that spread of this because the hitter doesn't like that. And
Yep.
yeah, his is brutal. He's amazing.
I'm glad we both came to that same conclusion because that's what I look for in pitchers is exactly
Oh
that. I
yeah.
look for like to me, because then you can just throw it. You basically throw it down the middle and let the pitches do the work, and it's going to be equilateral. Hitter, it drives them crazy because they're looking, and a pitcher it makes it easy. You just aim down the middle, and hitters now got to guess. But yeah, that stuff's just jumped out at me. I did double check. I did fact check myself. Roki did have 13 consecutive strikeouts in his 19 strikeout perfect game. That's ridiculous. But anyway, without further ado, here is Jeremiah Estrada. I am here with one of the hottest pitchers on the planet, Jeremiah Estrada, the all-time record holder for consecutive Ks. Like how that's crazy, man. How do you feel about that?
It's amazing, man. First and foremost, I'd like to thank you for having me on the show or on your podcast and everything. And it's such an honor and blessing. But yeah, it's been a huge blessing and it's exciting too. Very overwhelming and just don't know how to really soak it all in yet.
Did ever in your wildest dreams, like, did you even think this was a thing? Like, how do you even think about this? Like growing up, striking out 13 guys in a row, like that's nuts. Like that was never something
Yeah,
that was in your
I
head.
no, usually you see I mean, growing up, you see some guys who are like huge names who are doing some crazy stuff. Someone hit 4 home runs in the game, 3 home runs in the game, and you're just seeing this, and you're always seeing others doing it. And now, like the fact that I was able to accomplish this goal or this record, and I'm just seeing, dude, that's me all over the place right now. Like it's hard to really believe, And sometimes I have to log out of Instagram to see if I'm imagining things, but it's been crazy. I
But
don't even like I'm telling you, I said, man.
it's one of those things that I think snuck up on everybody because you started watching it. I mean, I was just counting in my head, and I'm like,
Mhm.
wait, didn't he just strike out everybody the day before? Like I remember featuring you, and then I'm like seeing the next game, and you're like, wait, he just struck out everybody again, and then you start adding them up, and like like all of a sudden it gets to this ridiculous number.
Oh yeah. See, like even when the after the Yankees, I of course, I don't really remember. I know what I did the last outing, which was against the Reds, but more of anything, like I'm always the guy that likes to look at my mechanics to see the bad pitches instead of like the good ones, or look at the good ones and be like, okay, Lake was going there. Just ways of I like to look back, kind of just like looking back at film. And I remember out of the from the Yankees, I just seen media. I was like, yeah, I did good today. Thank you guys. And you're like, well, how do you feel about the record that you just broke for the franchise history? I was like, what record? what do you guys mean? He's like, you had struck out 10. And I was like, what do you mean? Today I struck out 5. And they're like, including the last 5 that you had. And I'm like, oh, man, I didn't even know I did that. I'm just excited that we just got the win today against the Yankees. And I got to face Aaron Judge.
Yeah, like what is that like? Like facing that monster dude and him like being scared of you now. Like you're the man and he's just Aaron Judge.
No, to me, he's still like, I still get like, even though I struck him out, I'm like locked in. But I walked out, I'm like, dude, I just faced Aaron Judge. Like, like kind of like, because I'm gonna be the show guy and I have to play video games. And that's just a guy that's been level 99. He is built literally of every single video games character. When you want to make an athlete or a football player or a baseball player, he is the guy that you are building. A 6'9" tall beast who's just seeing him compared to like Alex Verdugo in left field, and when they would meet up, it's like, dude, like it's not even fair. And then it's funny, man. It's hilarious.
It's amazing. Like,
oh yeah, it's amazing.
So the thing that with him, like he walked by me at the All-Star game, and I'm not a tall dude, like, but like he was head and shoulders above everybody. Like that is a monster guy.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. And that's what happens when you have guys who look like that instead of joining sports that where most people think where they should be, football or basketball. That shows you the amount of damage that a man or a human being that size, way he looks, can do in baseball. It's just a different breed of the sport, different. And the fact that he can play center field with how big he is insane. The dude doesn't even have to jump to rob a home run.
An incredible, yeah, incredible athlete. And
yeah.
then you're facing him and just blowing him away, right? Like, I mean, it's just what you do. It's just what you do. Like that's.
I just doing my job, doing what I can do, and listening to the catcher.
So
listening to the boss man.
One of the big things, so obviously I tweet you out, and everybody, number one, they love your personality. You're one of those guys that's instantly likable. There's just something about you that draws everybody's eyes to you. You're just a good dude. But the bigger thing is like, so you had, Cubs fans are like, they're still cheering for you. Like like, I mean, I wish it would have worked out here, but he's a great dude. Like that is one of the things that just lives with you. What was the big thing that shifted in your head to make you get that big jump?
Well, I mean, it's all happened within a year, man. A lot of it has happened within a year. I wouldn't have even thought I would be here. And to the Cubs fans, man, I mean, I got to say it too as well. They by far are one of the best fan bases in baseball. They're very loyal to the team, and when I was there, I really loved the Cubs fans. I loved interacting with fans because I want to build a relationship with them if I had seen myself being with that team for a while. But of course, things didn't work out. I'm totally grateful for the Chicago Cubs for picking me up at a high school, and they really believed in me and had me for like 5 years, 6 years. And, just a business standpoint, and just they had to make a decision they didn't make. And that's what happened. But I'm still completely grateful for them and to the fan bases.
Yeah, I mean, and they don't forget it either. So the thing I love about their fan base is, sometimes you get bitter fan bases. They're not really that way when it comes to their players, especially guys that they really like. I think they're just always going to cheer for you. And I love that. I love that about you because you're one of those guys that I love seeing be successful because of that personality. I mean, everything you treat as a blessing. You are, you're one of the good guys. It seems like I'm judging you from afar, and I can see how honest and easily it is to read you because you seem like an open book. Am I wrong?
I get that a bit. Sometimes I try to work on it because sometimes I can be too happy in the conversation or too like talkative in the conversation. I'm just like, hey man, I'm sorry, I'm just being me. I think with me, I just love talking and interacting with people. And also, like, with this moment, I feel like, I mean, I could act nonchalant, just beating a record, but it's just, I'm enjoying this. I just felt like I just beat a mission that took me years to complete in a video game. And I'm happy. I feel well rested, but it doesn't end here. Of course, my main priority is doing my job for the team, doing what I can do to help this team get the win. And I think that's my biggest priority of the whole record thing. Like I was just telling people, like I didn't even know that the streak was continuing. Of course, like the situation that it came even to the Miami, Suarez was down. Someone needed to come in the ninth and close that game out, and I knew that I had a job to do that day. And that was just what's going on in my mind most.
Yeah, exactly. What was the big? So I've seen some things about you've changed your arsenal. Obviously, you've added some pitches and stuff. Was that the big breakout? Because it's more than just a streak. I mean, we're talking about your ERA is ridiculous, your WHIP is ridiculous, your walks have decreased, your strikeouts have increased. It is more than just we're talking about a great pitcher, not a great pitcher not a guy that just happened to strike out 13 hitters in a row. Like you have all the makings of a top tier guy. What was the big breakout? What was it? Was it like is it a mental thing? Is it a physical thing? What was it?
I think it's both. I think they all accumulate to being the same thing altogether once you find pieces that will belong together. I feel like as an athlete, you got to worry about a lot of things. Of course, the way you're feeling, the way your mind is, the way how you feel comfortable with some things. And I think when I made the big leagues last year or the year 2 years ago with the Cubs, I had all the stuff that I needed that I felt I got myself there with the curveball, changeup, slider, fastball, and that year that I made the big leagues, I was taught a sweeper, and working with that sweeper, I started it from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. And of course, throughout the year, I had fastball sliders as my top two pitches that I've thrown the most. And when I made it to big leagues, they're like, hey, man, so, of course, when I'm warming up to get ready for a big league game, I was throwing curveball, my slider, my changeup, whatever I needed to throw, just in case I was using it. But he was like, hey, man, as a big league coach talking to a big leaguer now, like the smartest thing to do is the two pitches that you use the most in a game. Just worry about those. If you're going to worry about a changeup, then it seems to me that you're a fastball slider guy. So wash those other two and just go fastball slider. And it was kind of the way that we had, even leading to spring training, like, hey, let's really jump on that fastball slider mix. It's curveball or washing it, the changeup, or watching that too. Like I was like, well, changeup's a top pitch of mine that I've grown up with. I've always had like a good certain changeup, and they're like, yeah, but it's use what's been working, fastball slider. And I was like, okay. And I'm not gonna say no. I'm a rookie. I mean, I want to be coachable. I want to show them like, hey, I'm always willing to listen. But yeah, I mean, even though they were telling me to work on the fastball slider, I ended up starting the year in AAA anyways, and yet alone missing the WBC, trying to make the big league team. But went on the years with whatever I had, and it was going well. And then in the middle of June, somewhere around this time, they were trying to just cheat me a splitter. And I was like, in my head, I was like, isn't that like a crazy pitch to like jam into your fingers and just everything else? And it went on. And of course, I was like, yeah, I'm all for it. This could either go really well, really bad. And it just did not work out. I mean, some pitches aren't just meant for some people. And I got sent to AAA. And when I got sent to AAA, they were like, we're going to teach you a new slider too. And I was like, man, okay. I'm not going to argue with anybody, like I think we could do it. And I was like, I feel like I can show you guys like ideas that I've had, but they were like, man, we want you to work on what we do, which is by far like, okay, it's no problem. I'm all for it, but just didn't work out as well. And then on social media, it was even out everywhere that I had got sent to Arizona to work on my labs and work on other stuff. And from there, I was just, hey guys, like I really wanted to like do things on my own. I wanted to figure out a new pitch that I needed to figure out, and that splitter or change up, whatever you guys want to throw, I think I could figure it out myself. And of course, things went away where they're like, hey, okay, well, we really want that splitter. So, and I was like, well, I'm gonna go with what feels good with me, because at the end of the day, it is our careers that we have. Each person, each player, it's our career. Whatever we feel comfortable with, we're gonna want to throw. And yeah, and I had that fastball. I kept the sweeper that they had showed me before, that TC. His name's Tony Calga. I always struggle saying it's the guy's name, but
We'll go with
Tony
TC.
Calga. He was, yeah, TC. He was a South Bend coach the year I made my debut in 2022, and he was like a pitching director or something last year. And I went down and worked it on. I was like, hey, TC, I want to keep of course, fastball's there. I want to keep your sweeper, but I want to throw a faster slider. And also the splitter, I'm going to figure that out myself. Like, I'm going to figure out how to like do something, And we learned a gyro slider, which was like somewhere like right here, going back to like old pitches, but I don't throw that. And then the splitter, I was like, okay, we're going to try Vulcan. We're going to try splitter. We're going to go from like top to zone right here, and just it's not working. Nothing. And I looked at Eric Gagne growing up, Dodger fan, unfortunately, Padre. Well, no, unfortunately now.
Exactly.
Yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
gotcha.
like the Dodgers now. But yeah, so it went on, and I tried his Vulcan grip, and it just couldn't work. And I was like, man, like I can't figure it out. And then I just of course, pitching is all about feel. And all of a sudden, I was like, let me just, in my head, I felt like these needed to get out the way. And I just, all of a sudden, just curled these two and got to here.
Nice.
Literally, like this ball's on top. And I tell myself, just throw it exactly like a fastball. And that's about it.
So nobody taught you that. You taught
No,
yourself that.
Yeah, I was just figuring out, and I knew what I needed, because when I used to be in high school, I used to throw my circle change literally like this, but I used to be on a different arm slot, which is more angled. So I would tell myself to really like tell this finger to push off of that.
Yep.
And I knew that that's what created a certain type of movement. And when I threw the splitter, kind of like made me think of that, my old mindset when I would throw a chip. And I was like, okay, well, I wanted to leave off of this finger only. So I'm going to purposely and forcefully make it have to come off of this finger only by curling these two and getting these two out of the way. Because even when I tried throwing a Vulcan, I would throw it and the fastball just takes over all the pitches, and it would just end up being like a high two seam. It was just going all over the place. And I was like, let me just try this. And I just threw one. It wasn't for a strike, of course, but it did the right movement. And then I threw like 5 more and just couldn't control it. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go to bed every single day holding this grip, and I'm going to get comfortable with it. And then it took a couple of weeks, and I figured it out.
Well, let's see that again. Hold that close, because that is a really unique grip. And you're not pronating it. You're just thinking come off one fit. You're thinking come off your ring finger. Yep.
I'm thinking like, okay, so like a fastball, you think of, and this was actually a good shout out to Alex Antonio, who's the guy that scouted me in the Cubs farm director or farm system. Is of course, like with my heater, you're here. And he goes, and he always told me, whenever you throw a splitter, always think you have another finger at the top, like right here, like you have a third finger. And I was like, okay, let me take that into consideration of like in this situation, make it look like I have a fastball grip, pretty much like from the way I'm throwing like this, but with the ring finger that's not there. I'm just thinking there's another finger. And then I'm gonna just throw with these two a hard fastball, and then it'll just zip. And it's kind of things that you build up and take it.
A lot of people have problems with a finger taking control over it and then would bend it or somehow get it out of the way. And I think that is the key. Really interesting though, that you said a couple of things, and this is one thing that I totally agree with. You're in charge of your career. I know everybody, you want to be coachable and you want to say, yes, sir, no, sir. You want to try everything, right? Because the worst you can do is you fail. And then they're like, well, you didn't try well. Everybody wants to help you get your way, but also put a little stamp on it and say, hey, I helped this guy be successful. You took it on your own to say, hey, if I'm not going to be good, if I'm not going to be out there, nobody else is suffering other than me. So I've got to do this myself. And it seems like, sleeping with a baseball, carrying a baseball everywhere and finding out this very unique grip. That's awesome.
Yeah, for sure. And of course, like by all means, like I did have a lot of help with TC as well. I do feel it's very valuable to work with someone that you feel that you can trust, and also just have a certain type of bond other than just, like we were able to mess around and have fun as we were trying to create this pitch, and this wasn't the first idea that I thought about. I was thinking of here and all these places, and they were like, let's try this place. Let's try that place. And we're all right here. And I was like, hey, so I think this is going to be good right here. And it got to a point where it got to this point right here. And the reason why I was just, I don't even remember the reason why, but I just remember like, oh, this feels good. This feels perfect. And you're like, okay, if you think that's what it is, like, I think we can do it. He goes, okay, let's work on it. But then, of course, I went the extra step and started sleeping with the baseball and started waking up and putting the fingers in my baseball. If I'm going to brush my teeth, I'm going to hold the baseball right here and brush my teeth lefty now and just whatever it is. Like, I exaggerated it, and exaggeration took place, and it's worked.
That is fantastic. Because it is now we've got to talk about the name of this because I was watching a game and I think it was Ron Darling who was trying to say, oh yeah, he throws this splitter, but he calls it and I think he said he calls it a shitter, which shitter should have been,
Yeah.
yeah. Because I was like, maybe you can call it a sharp, hard splitter, and that would be a shitter. But the chitter, we're talking about the chitter now. And so you're thinking of it as a change up / splitter, and I get where you're doing that. It makes it really hard for announcers, though, man. That's tough.
I know it is hard. I mean, it was a name that popped up with talking to like even to Ruben. He goes, "What are you gonna call that thing?" I don't know what to call it. And I'm like, I don't know. He goes, "Well," I was like, "Come up with a name, bro," because Ruben had like because when I got picked up by the Padres, of course, I only live an hour, 2 hours away from Petco Park from my actual home. So, hey, come out here when you can. We're gonna, show you the field and maybe even get you in the lab and blah blah blah. Show me your pitch and blah blah blah. He goes, okay, so what are we gonna call this thing? Because I really like this. I think this is gonna be your second pitch. We'll work on another slider though. And I was like, I'm all for it. If you have another slider for me, I kind of wanted to go faster. He goes, yeah, we'll work on this. But this was your thing. He's like, we got to figure out how to chart. And I was like, well, it's a Vulcan but circled, but it's supposed to have some splitter movement, splitter like, I guess, movement or whatever. He was like, I don't know. He's like, so like someone like a change up splitter. I was like, yeah. So like a chitter, like in between. He goes, I like that. And then I was like, I mean, maybe we could call it that. He was like, we'll see. But yeah, that kind of just the name kicked in, and that's about it.
How big has he been for your career? How big has Ruben able to been for
it's big. I think not only just him, just the team as well. I'm big, with not just me, but like I like to be a part of the group. If I'm gonna hang out with a new group of guys, I want to fit in. I want to feel like I could be a vibe to them, and also yet alone feel like a vibe to me. And once I walked in that, yet alone being in near home is a big helpful thing too. I think so a lot. It's closer. You know that if you were to be in any struggle, you have someone who could just drive an hour to see and help you. But that hasn't happened to me yet, so it's not the case. But yeah, as soon as I just walked in, seen the teammates, I met Joe Musgrove, Manny Machado, Tatis, and those are big names, and these are guys who know that they have big names, but are still able to be guys to make them look like I'm not just a big name on your teammate. We are brothers here, And it's also, the San Diego vibes. Who doesn't love San Diego vibes? And the San Diego vibes, culture vibes, and just the team vibes are just absolutely electric with this team. And it's been it's made me feel comfortable. And I think that's one thing too, is the way you feel yourself comfortable. And yet alone, I'm a rookie. I'm a rookie with these guys. And to them, it's not like, hey, rookie, do this. Hey, rookie, do that. Hey, rookie, do. It's just more like, hey, you're rookie. You know what your responsibilities are. Just take care of them, bro. If you understand any problems, do it. But we're here. We're family. That's how I was. And I was like, okay, I was going on to sit here and try to be not myself. And also, I'm gonna give a shout out to Willie Harris because he's giving me advice. Because as a rookie, he's always said, "Hey, man, look, there's something I've noticed. A lot of rookies do is try to fit in too much a little bit. But I think your thing is always be yourself. That's all every rookie is. Always be yourself. That's gonna get you. That's gonna take you a long place." And
absolutely, yeah.
When I came here, I knew new beginnings, new group set of guys, and I was like, I'm just gonna be myself. And if they like me, I hope they do. And hopefully, it's been good. And I feel like it's been good vibes. And I'm really loving the team, the camaraderie here, and the captains. We have Joe and Tatis and Manny. Man, those are leaders right
there. Yeah, just great folks. And I know. I've known Dylan Cease for a while. Darvish for a while, and they're just fantastic.
It's ridiculous. Cease is, of course, new to the team, but just seeing Darvish, the way he works, seeing the way he's so locked in, so just I'm not there yet. at all. I'm nowhere near. I'm maybe like at 10% of how he is towards this game. And it is absolutely electric to see that he just also got his 200th win when we were in Atlanta. That celebration was just, you shake his hand and it's like, dude, you are a teammate of mine. You know, like I would have asked you for an autograph if I found out what you did, but now I get to shake your hand for like, bro, this is awesome. I'm able to experience it, you know.
You need to teach him the chitter though, because you Darvish collects pitches like people collect baseball cards. You like he will absolutely be throwing this within the next week. I mean, it's just what you does. He just tries to pick up pitches.
Yeah, I know. I try to tell him. I remember I told him something about, I think your slider. You know, he's like, dude, your slider's good. I'm like, I know, but you're just, I don't know. Your stuff is too nasty.
He's so smart. So talking to him, he said when he gets done with baseball, he wants to be a pitch grips coach because he thinks he can teach everybody pitch grips. He doesn't want to be a pitching coach. He wants to teach people pitch grips and especially sliders and cutters.
Oh, that would be, oh my gosh, he would make, I mean, he would reel in some, for sure, some people to go get those grips. I mean, I'm doing okay with what I'm doing now in the game, but I would still ask you, Darvish, hey, bro, teach me a grip versus anything else, like anything that could actually even add. You know, I think every pitcher wants to be, yeah, things are working the way they are, but I think we could add something else to it to make it even better. That's crazy. You know, I think everybody wants to be better in their ways.
Are you thinking about adding a knuckleball? Maybe go up to Waldron and say, hey, how do you throw that?
I've asked Waldron how does he throw his knuckleball, but I can't throw a knuckleball for anything because you got to just learn how to like not get behind on the ball. You got to be like on top. And I was like, oh, you already lost me there. My fastball takes over all my pitches, so I get behind on everything. But
have you ever tried to catch that, the knuckleball?
oh yeah, I was like, hey, well, I'm gonna play catch it. He goes, okay, I'm gonna throw a knuckleball. All right, you throw one. I was like, yeah, find another partner. Like I'm not trying to sit here and cover myself for protection because I don't know where this ball is going. And
It's
the first pitch he
freaking...
threw to me, it's ridiculous. The first pitch he threw to me, I saw the logo right here, and it never left my sight. It just looked at this coming straight at my face the whole time.
That's
And you
messed
know,
up.
he throws it at 80 miles per hour. That is ridiculous.
Dude, yeah, it's crazy. I mean, if you can't catch it, how are you supposed to hit it?
Yeah, and it's funny. I mean, even hearing hitters the way they talk about Matt Waldron, it's just like, dude, it's funny. You know, it's funny hearing like the way he's dude, like, he's got a mouth. Like just hitters like there's an outfielder who saw one of our guys getting warmed up in like the seventh inning or whatever from Matt Waldron, and he goes, "Is he going in?" And he goes, "Yeah." And he goes, "It was the best. It was the best."
That's
But
fantastic. So, let's talk about your fastball because your fastball is kind of freakish in that it has really good rise to it. Like I mean, you know your numbers on that. I mean, you throw the crap out of it. Has it always been that way? Did you have somebody that said, you know, hey, get behind the ball a little better and then it's going to take off? Or has that always been the way it's been?
it's just been a natural way. Funny that you say that too, because in high school, I think it was just a different arm slot, I guess, but I was more towards a little bit lower. It's kind of hard to do. I was like maybe more right here. My ball was always cutting. And it was like cut rides, or cutting, just whatever it is. And my dad would be like, dude, what are you doing with the ball? And then with our college coaches, and they're like, no, that's what you want is moving on the fastball. And we're like, you know, kept it, whatever. And then we went our way to the professional league. And with the ride, I mean, I was injured for so many, you know, for like 2-3 years straight. And then COVID happened. And going on, I went to Myrtle Beach. And I remember a coach was telling me, bro, your fastballs, even when you throw it low, it just stays, like hovers back up. He's like, you have a good right fastball. And I was like, thanks. You know, I've never known who did that, you know, and it just continued. And I guess since then on, I've always just had good ride in the fastball, and people would tell me about it. And they're like, dude, you have 28 or 21 or 50 or 8. I don't even know. And I was like, dude, I have no idea what that means. I have no idea what do you mean? IVB, what does that mean? He goes, it means vertical break this. I'm like, still have no idea. I'm like complete blank. You got to show me. And now he just tells me, all right, we just need to, when you throw this fastball, you need to look at it, see if it's 19 or above. If it is 19 or above, that means your fastball was doing good that day.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, exactly. So it's one of those things that like we all know those numbers, we all know what that means, but it's you don't have to. Like you have to throw the ball and you have to then look back and say, did it do this or did it do that? All it is it's fighting gravity. It has, you know,
Yeah.
induced vertical break means a fancy way of saying it fights gravity really well. And it doesn't drop. Fastballs don't rise, but they don't drop as fast as other pitches. How do you release that? Like, what is the key to you having a fastball, or is it just the way your
Honestly, it's not
fingers are
really.
shaped?
Maybe. Well, I do throw my fastball like this, a little bit split, kind of.
Yeah, a little
Some like
split. Yep.
yeah, a little bit split. I mean, as normal as it can be. Thumbs just right here. That's just about it. I think the main thing too is my mechanics help with it. My natural mechanics allow me to be more over completely the top. And yeah, then people ask me, how do I throw a fastball? I'm like, normal, bro. Like just normal, He never been close though. 'Cause if I throw it here though, I'm not gonna lie. If have my fingers feeling like they're close, I feel like you need to pitch the side.
Yep.
I think so.
Yep.
But like I just add like what's comfortable. Like if I'm gonna just like if you're holding an egg and just right there and just that's it. Just light and easy and just seams over the or fingertips or over the seams and that's about it.
So you're not gripping it hard. Are you feeling it rip off is that one of the cues that you think, or nah? Do you ever think of it ripping the
Nah,
seams?
I've never really thought about it. I mean, maybe just feeling. Yeah, I don't know. That's what I'm saying. I've never really thought about it.
I
I just
don't
go
want
out
you to
there and
think
throw
about
it,
it. You're doing great. Don't think about it.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, people who ask me about it all the time, But like, I really don't think about it. I just placement wherever feels comfortable. I mean, just right here feels comfortable, and maybe I think the fingertips add because I'm very able to like get like I don't even know what you
Oh, I
call
see
this.
that. Yeah, a little double jointed thing going there.
Yeah,
I get it. Now,
like that. So, and then yet alone, I'm pressing down the seams. Maybe that's what it is. I don't really know.
interesting. All right. So this is something I heard Shota Imanaga say about his grip when he grips his fastball is he feels like he curled his fingers or something, and that helps him get his ride. You're not curling your fingers, but your fingers naturally, you do have a little bend to
Yeah.
it that might help.
Well, I mean, my hands are also pretty big. Like I could honestly like pretty much hide the
That is
baseball in my
pretty big.
hands. So kind of, yeah. So like, I mean, my hands aren't like Tyler Glass.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But yeah, just as simple as it is. I mean, just put in placing and just whatever. If you told me to just grab a baseball and just there you go. Quick. That's it.
If you ever run into Logan Gilbert, ask him to show you how big his hands are. Dude, oh my God. Like he grips a baseball and it's just like it's a lot like glass, but that dude, another giant dude. Like they're just monsters.
Yeah, pitchers you expect to be monsters,
Yeah.
tall, lengthy dudes, But yeah, that's the crazy part.
And your
But yeah,
slider, is your slider still a work in progress, or is this something that you feel comfortable with it now?
I feel comfortable with now. It's the one that Ruben and them and Ben shown, for this, and it's just a normal grippy slider over the top, like and it's
Gyro?
just right here, gyro.
Yeah.
That's kind of the goal is get outside, but of course sometimes it gets a little bit too hard because, like I was telling you, fastball takes over and ends up being a rising cutter, But
That's not
just
bad.
so no, that's not. Of course the goal of this is just really getting myself to get here, like really feeling myself, kind of like throwing a football.
Yep, exactly. One
Mhm.
of the cool things I thought, like, I love this when you're like, did Pitching Ninja post me after the game? I thought that was fantastic. I'm sitting there going, I feel extra pressure now. Like, that's one way to get to my heart. Like, I'm going to watch every time you're out there and just look for anything you do. Like, because,
Oh yeah,
like, I have to watch all these games and then I see, wait, this guy just struck out everybody. I got to see what he's doing and delve into it a little bit more. And I'm like, it's not a fluke. Like you've got really good stuff. So now you've made the list of somebody that I always follow, but then the name check always helps, right? I mean, I'm always
uh,
gonna look at
yeah. I was always, I mean, on my feed on Twitter or Instagram, it's always baseball. It's all sports, and that's about it. I think that's the goal. And of course, I don't think for me, it's always been cool. I mean, just to see that I have a card right now on the of the show has been like, oh my goodness, like that's me, dude.
that. That's
Like
so
that's me.
cool.
And I show my girlfriend, babe, I'm in the game, because it's just something that like the kid stuff that you see is like, I've always loved video games. I didn't have them a lot growing up, but it's just a huge thing that I've always wanted. I'm very into it every day. And of course, social media is a new big hit right now with all over it. I really don't like social media, but it's part of the world.
Yep.
But yeah, I was always seeing these guys. I'm like, damn, I want to make pitching. And this guy's got like 1,500 retweets on this picture. I was like, I need to do better so I can be on pitching. And sometimes I'd like, yeah, like I would say, like I'll pitch good, and I'll be like, I wonder if I made it, and I'll check, and it wasn't there, and I was like, maybe I need to do something more. Here we are.
Exactly. Not only making pitching, but making an interview with pitching. Not a lot of guys get that. Like that's pretty cool. I'm lucky to be able to talk to the all-time strikeout guy. Like, geez whiz. It's just so weird. Think of all the people that have played this game. Everybody in the history of baseball. Nobody's done what you did. Like,
I know, that's what I'm saying.
Is that mind-blowing?
I almost like it is, because like you just think like you did something that, oh, you got your name out there, a little bit, and it's like, no, dude, like I gave him my itch. He's like, dude, like look, he's like, I hype you up a lot, Jeremiah. Like you're a good pitcher, and he's like, but I can't tell you like how unheard of this is. Like I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, well, Jay, he's like, look, you have Mariano Rivera, you have all these Aroldis Chapmans, all these guys. They didn't do what you did, and they are legends. They are guys who are like, this is something that's like rare. I'm like, yeah, but I didn't even look back at it. I've never really thought about it. And even when I went in to get that 11th, 12th, and 13th, like that wasn't the goal. The goal was like, I'm not letting these guys get on base because we need to win this game,
Right.
And that's about it. It was like, of course, it crosses my mind, but it's not like I was like, okay, that's one. Okay, that's it. It wasn't like that. It was just like, all right, we got one more out until we win this game. The boys came through, and Waldron pitched a lights out game that day, and that was it. That was it.
Yeah, that is.
It still hasn't hit me. Like I'm still telling you.
Still has not hit me. Growing up a fan of baseball, is there anybody like you're like sitting there going, you haven't faced him yet, but you want to face the guy? Is there anybody that you're itching to face?
Man, I want my revenge. I wanted my revenge on Yadier Molina because he was my first hit, my first run, and everything else when I made my big league swim. I mean, that's so much hard to pick up. But honestly, so bringing back that moment, it's funny because I'm now good friends with them, and so is my agent, Albert Pujols. During that time, that was Albert Pujols last year, and yet alone Yadier Molina's. And I threw a fastball maybe about 6 inches off the plate, and Yadi does what he's always done in his career, just knows how to get the bat to barrel, just hits in the gap, clears the bases and whatever. And I ended up like giving like, I think, a fly ball for 2 outs, and next up was Lars Nootbaar, and on deck was Albert Pujols. And I was like, do I purposely walk Lars Nootbaar? But they might take me out. So I don't know if I pay that consequence, or should I just like make it quicker, maybe throw like a soft slider, hit him in the knee on accident, and be like, okay, now I gotta face Pujols. And then now just try to blow by. But Albert Pujols has always been a guy, it's always been a guy that my dad and I have always looked up to growing up, yet alone just for what he does on the field and what he does off the field, his faith and belief in Jesus Christ, because that's me and my family, and we're Christian Baptists, and that's just a huge goal as well. That was a huge goal. And I want to make it on time so I can face Albert Pujols. But yeah, honestly, I think Aaron Judge and all of them take care of it. I think that was like a big, like, yeah, especially with my group of friends that we play MLB The Show with all the time. We're always like, dude, what happens if you face Judge? He's like, you better strike him out. I'm like, I know, I'm scared. It's just like that. But yeah,
there's no like Shohei Hope or someone like that maybe getting up there.
Shohei as well. I had an opportunity with him last year and with Mike Trout, but that's when things were just, the splitter wasn't working to the point where I even tried throwing a splitter towards him to kind of work on it because they wanted me to work on it, and it wasn't working. It wasn't working, and I was just trying to experiment with pitches during that time. I'll get my revenge.
Oh, you definitely.
I ended up walking. I'll get my revenge. I ended up walking him and Trout back to back, and I was very upset.
So your command is like taken off though. Like, so that's like, is it because you're comfortable with all your pitches that everything's working now? Or is it a mental thing? Or did you just work on it? You're just more comfortable in your mechanics?
A lot more comfortable in my mechanics, a lot more comfortable with the relationship I have with my catchers, being able to know that I could actually shake off every now and then. I mean, I don't even shake either way. I mean, most times I might, And if people do see me shake off, it's because he's giving me a sign to shake off at sometimes. You never know. But yeah, just that, and then the relationship I have with the catchers, Campy and yet alone Higgy as well, great dudes and guys that I can know, like, dude, like this is me and you who are at war with that guy right there. Like, we got this. And yet alone to know and to feel the confidence within the pitch now. And yet alone, I have confidence in the pitch that I taught myself, and worked also with TC, but like to be able to know, like, okay, I got this and something else to back it up. Because I feel like it is good to go fastball slider, but I've always known fastball changeup has always gotten me. I mean, they got me drafted. The fastball changeup mix up in high school, and it kept me going throughout until I got injured. And it's always been there. And I knew, like, if I could figure out a changeup again, or if I had my old changeup, it would work. And I knew that once I was able to get this guy in control, I knew that heater, slider, and this guy can take plays. And if I just do what I can do and have the confidence, and yet alone, like I was telling you, it's just the love of the vibe with the teammates, to know that I got a group of guys to come in and lock me if I have a tough outing, and all the guys would pick me up. I know they're that type of team, and yet alone, just with Ruben, Niebla, and Ben, just relationships with the pitching coaches and with the staff, I think that builds a lot of character, and also builds a lot of, what do you call it? Confidence, right?
Yeah. So it's one of those things that I don't think fans or anybody doesn't play understand as well. It's like, it's not necessarily a mechanic thing. A lot of you're people. Everybody's a person. You want to be, if you're at home, comfortable in what you do, you have confidence in your pitches, you have confidence your teammates have your back, you have confidence in the guy calling the pitches, and you've developed a pitch from scratch that is a nasty pitch, it all clicks, and all of a sudden you're able to throw, and you could probably throw. Do you just generally aim down the middle? Is that what you're doing, and letting the pitches do their work, or are you trying to hit a spot?
Sometimes there's times where things that I'm currently working on still, there's everyday things to work on, which is mechanically, there's times where like I get on my toes too quick, and Ruben and I have been discussing it, like, hey, let's try to get more on the hip, let's get work on, things that we need to work on. There's always stuff like that there continuously that we work on, and with the splitter, like actually the last outing against the Royals, the splitter was just kind of like, oh man, I mean, there's days where it's not going to be perfect,
Sure.
and that was leaving the splitter down in the dirt where I needed it to be at on 0-2, on 0-0 counts. I was throwing them there. And then when it got to 0-2 counts, then I was trying to put the ball in the dirt and under the strike zone, and ended up leaving them in the strike zone. And they were getting kind of hit, where people were making contact rollovers. And yeah, that happens. But at most times, like, yeah, I think also too, yet alone, like when you can show some of these hitters that you could throw all your pitches for strikes in the zone, and yet alone control for someone out of the zone, I think that can take place a lot in thinking that the hitters can know, like, all right, this guy can throw. He's not just going to throw one pitch here all the time.
Yep.
I can, yeah, wherever if I need to put this at, I could somewhat get to the, yeah.
Do you watch Suarez the way he pitches too? Because that Mr. Heater, like that, isn't that like all he throws is he?
He's like, I can't even, like, to me, like, it's just so easy, so fluent, so controllable, so just like, I don't know, and what bugs me too is sometimes he does that and he strikes out the guy, just, I'm like, dude, if I did that, I'm like, yeah, let's go, As far as just, I'm like, gosh, as far as just legit, that is a legit dude, Bobby fastballs, and just to be going up there and just knowing, like, it's literally like, I mean, there isn't even no for Waldron said, he's literally in his head, just looks like, touch this, bro, see if you can, and that's it. And that's how I feel, confidence like that. And now that I'm like, all right, touch this, bro. Here you go, fastball changeup.
That's interesting, because I would imagine that's another way to get confidence too, because everybody's taught like you got to switch things up, you got to do this, that you're seeing a guy in front of you, a guy that you're on the same in the same bullpen with, who just throws fastballs and fills up the zone with it, doesn't throw it in the same spot, will move it around, and just is like, here, hit it. And that has to give you some confidence too.
Oh yeah, and by far, because you can see a guy is able to do that. And last year, I was known for just throwing fastballs. I mean, I wasn't really able to throw my changeup anymore because they wanted me to work on fastball slider, and there was days where like I knew like the fastball is good, but it is big league baseball. Like these guys can, some guy. I mean, it's kind of hard to say that because I can't say I can't throw fastballs all the time because this man's doing it here.
Right.
You know? And last year it was working occasionally, but when I knew that I couldn't have at least something else to throw for a strike zone, which is the slider, and it just all went downhill ever since I started learning that splitter. I just couldn't really have feel for the slider, and then all I had was just the fastball. And I mean, there's a game against the Reds where I threw 24 straight fastballs in a row with bases loaded. It was just like after that, I was just couldn't stop hearing it. You know, like oh, fastball. But it's like there's other situations of reasons why I had to throw those 24 fastballs, and I'm not going to say it, but it's just it was a decision from the team, I guess.
Gotcha.
But yeah. But now that I was able, okay, well, I had my, I guess let me throw my changeup, it would have been different. I would have been fast changeup, but it's okay. Now I'm doing it here with another team. But but yeah, you know, it's absurd seeing Bobby Fastball just throwing up there and just consistently 98, 99 to 100 every single time he goes out there, and nothing changes. He does the same thing every day. He is proven given to show what you can do when you have a consistency, when you have and you really like his mechanics are the same all the time.
Yep,
it's powerful.
No, totally. What other couple of things? Do you have any hidden talents? Are you like one of these guys that are secretly good at something other than MLB The Show?
I don't know. My dad put me in a lot of sports growing up, and he's always like, "I want you to be good at everything." And I'm not gonna lie, I'm very competitive, like very competitive. Like if you told me right now if I could try to touch this roof and I couldn't do it, and we hung up this phone right now, I would sit here trying to that one day, try to touch that thing and prove to a video like, look, I did it. And like it's just competition. If you tell me to go race, whatever it is, it's just like that, you know. And I think that's one thing about me is like pretty good at like ping pong, but not better than Suarez. Suarez is better than me at ping pong. And Luis there's some guys here who are ridiculous at ping pong. That's all I gotta say. But yeah, I can play the piano. I could
Are you good?
I'm okay at golf. I taught myself how to play piano.
That's awesome.
My ear.
Nice.
Yeah, it was funny story about it too, because I'm Christian Baptist in our church is guitar and piano. And I really like piano. I wanted to play an instrument. And I remember every day after church, I would go in this room where there was a piano and just teach myself, try to press notes. And I'd play a song. And one of my favorite songs was the first song that I taught myself was Akon Don't Matter. And I was in high school, you know. And I was like, I'm okay, let me try it. And I'd press every note until I found like a beat that would go with it. And it took like a month. And I was like, hey, Dad, come over here. And he goes, dude, what do you think? You can't be touching the church piano. I was like, just come listen to this. I started playing. He was like, bro, when did you learn how to play piano? And he goes, I taught myself. He goes, I'm going to try to get you one. And then I started learning a bunch of other songs. And I haven't touched the piano in years, but there's that. Pretty good golfer. I like to golf every now and then. I'm not like no under 80s though. The best I've ever shot was an 83. But furthest drive I've had is 364 yards. So
dude, that's solid.
Yeah. It was just the only drive I got on the fairway that day.
It
was a little bit downhill. Was a little bit downhill.
You don't have to tell anybody that. Just say it's 360.
Nah, I'm kidding. Nah, but it was good. It was my buddy's a professional golfer. His name is Jacob Calpine. He's about to be a professional. So I like to golf with him a lot.
I was just talking to Mason Miller, and I think he was saying he had hit a ball like 380 or something. I mean, Mason's a gigantic dude, right? Like, you know, Mason Miller, the A's guy.
The A's guy.
Yeah, throws 104, whatever.
Yeah, just, able to paint 100 and feels like an 89 mile power slider. Here you go, try to hit it.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. I mean, the normal people shouldn't be able to do that. Well, I'm going to let you go back to the clubhouse. Say hi to everybody for me, man. Say,
yes, sir.
Yeah,
we'll do.
Definitely abuse you, Darvish, a little bit for me. Let's give him some crap.
So I'm gonna come back with you the next time on a different pitch.
Tell him that I told you to go teach him the chitter.
Okay, I'm gonna see what he does. I want to see how he reacts when I show my grip.
Yeah, exactly. Do that, and we'll see how that works.
Oh yeah, we'll do. Thank you.
Cool,
man.
Have a great rest of the season, dude.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Have a good one.